so I've interviewed many experiencers who have had close encounters of the third kind, and I listen very carefully, trying to bracket out the reality question. And they are convinced that it's true. I used to do UFO investigations in Louisiana, and I had a detective agency who could do psychological stress evaluation. So you could even take a tape recording of someone talking, put it on the PSE, and tell whether they're lying or not. I have to tell you that many of these people, they passed the PSE test, and so you have to say they believe what they're saying.
They had an experience of some sort.
Yeah, so like I say, weighing the evidence, that's there's no easy answer to that, and I tend to like the more rigorous scientific approach. But on the other hand, I don't want to say these people are kooky or crazy if they're reporting a very powerful experience in their life, and that suggests very strongly that we do have neighbors in space.
I wasn't aware that you were an investigator of these things. Was that for the government or
for
police?
MUFON. MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, which over the decades has emerged as one of the best in terms of investigation, and then creating a file with the data that's in it. Yeah, I don't do that anymore, but I did for a while.
So what is the process of like interviewing someone that has had an experience?
Well, I had a little form. I would sit them down, turn on my tape recorder, explain what's going to happen. I had a bunch of questions. If they could draw a picture, that would be good. And I was interviewing a mother and son. He was 12, and they had a UFO within 500 feet followed them for 20 minutes on the highway, and then they went home, and I was there the day after. And the son drew a picture of the craft and this, that, and the next thing. And I told them, I've got my tape recorder now, and I'm going to have it tested at the detective agency. Got a phone call the next day from the mother.
Yep.
Did you have the tape tested yet? No, not yet. Well, there's a lie on there. Oh, I said, and what was that? She said, I told you that I'm 32. I'm actually 34.
But still convinced of all the other stuff.
Yeah, that's right. So, yeah, she had no compunction about the other things that she was saying. So.
Just lying about her age. Well, I guess that was a great relief for you that you.
Oh yeah, right.
But so that's interesting. Did you find that people often drew the stereotypical gray and the flying saucer with the little bubble on top?
Yes, I did, and that suggests a cultural trope that's out there in the culture, and we expect them to look like that, and they end up looking like that. But I don't want to reduce it to something that lacks sincerity,
It can either go one of two ways: either that's really what they look like because everyone thinks they look like that, and,
right,
or that it's like you said, a cultural development. What were some of the strangest stories that you heard from people of these encounters? I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm sure you have a couple memorable ones.
All right. Well, here's one that I still think about. Two firemen, and they're in the bayous of Louisiana. They're hunting nutria late at night. Nutria are kind of like beavers or something like that. So they're sitting in their boat with a gasoline motor and talking with each other, and this light looks like a star at first, starts to descend, gets bigger and bigger, and finally it settles only 70 feet above the boat. It bathes the boat in light, and even though the outboard motor is still going, the boat's not moving. And they discover their bodies are paralyzed. And they try to talk with each other and Captain Pinky was in the front, and Captain Pinky says, "Well, let's shoot it with a shotgun." He says, "I can't move my arms." And so this went on for some 20 minutes. They're able to talk, but they're actually paralyzed in suspended animation. Then it flies away. So they come back, and they go home, and I'm there again the next day. It's wonderful. Well, what did you see? Bright light. Oh,
That's specific.
what do you think it was? Don't know. And they really had no language to describe what it was, so I had to keep picking and picking in order to get it figured out. All right, a week later, I go back for another interview, and all the neighbors are there. And their wives have just read, 3 or 4 flying saucer books. So I asked them the question, well, what do you think it was? It was a spaceship. Oh, a spaceship.
Yeah.
Well, who was it piloted by? Well, extraterrestrials. They had the whole, I would call it a myth. That doesn't, I don't want to insult anybody, but the whole myth now becomes the filter for interpreting an experience which originally they couldn't explain.
They've constructed it.
Yeah, and then to top it all off, went back one more time. It was a Sunday afternoon. I went to the firehouse, took my son, who could climb on the fire trucks and stuff like that. Now Captain Pinky says has visions of his dead mother talking to him, sitting on the fender of the fire truck. So now you're into the paranormal.
And the spiritual
so I can
realm.
Watch the growth of an experience you couldn't explain to extraterrestrials, and now into paranormal experiences. I could see it right before my eyes.
Yeah.
And I want to say, how does that happen?
And was that a common thing that people would try to find ways to explain what they had encountered?
I think it is a common phenomenon. I do. And I can't measure its significance. So that's one of the reasons why I use the word cultural quite frequently.
Right.
It's not your individual experience, but it's your individual experience interpreted through the lenses of the surrounding culture. And let me just ask an observation, Josh. I can't really give you why it happens this way. I'd like to, but that's the way it is. I myself am not an experiencer, so I have to simply try to listen carefully to those people who report experiences.
Yeah, and discern what they might have gone through.
Yeah.
Would you say that there were many that were actually convincing, or were most of them kind of just hard to?
Some were quite convincing, and others cockamamie. Yeah, there's no question there are a lot of kooks that make you giggle.
Of course,
there are enough really serious, rational people who've had extraordinary experiences that I just want to say that they have a certain amount of integrity.
Yeah.
But, once you think rationally about UFO reports and whether or not we're talking about extraterrestrial visitors, then it gets kind of screwy, because even though you have a dominant close encounter of the third kind with the gray, there are 4 or 5 other species, one of which is the insectoid.
Okay.
Large grasshopper, praying mantis.
Wow.
And you could just feel culturally there's something sort of evil and dangerous going on here.
Yeah.
And so it's hard for me to take something like that literally. And then there's another alien who is a tall, handsome man that looks like a Scandinavian. That's my wife's favorite alien.
I'm sure.
And so you have to use categories such as myth, I think, in order to try to put these things together.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean there isn't some authentic experience underneath, but all the cultural manifestations I have to put in the category of myth. And one of the most highly respected investigators is named Jacques Vallée in Silicon Valley, and he also sees these mythical dimensions, and then he tries to connect it with pre-modern experiences with fairies and things like that. Let me just say I haven't gone there myself, but there are some who see these mythical structures at work, which only makes it more difficult. And the scientists at SETI or NASA, boy, they don't want to have anything to do with myth.
Yeah, and
In fact, if they can get away from cultural tropes in general, they want to. So that only makes it more complicated, the public conversation much more complicated. And I think the theologian needs to understand that complication and then speculate. We have to speculate because, you don't have conclusive empirical evidence for the things that you want to talk about.